Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer. So today we are going to cut this lovely short with pockets. Trust me, it's very simple and very easy to cut. Let's go to the work table. Now this short is going to have a band, so I'm starting minusing 2 inches for the band. So from there I'm going to mark the hip line, then the clutch line. Measure your clutch, you measure from your waist to your hip while sitting down. That's your clutch line. So mark the thigh line and the knee line. That's basically the vertical measurement that you need. Now I'm going to make it into a straight line, and that's the hip line to a straight line, and the clutch line, the tie line. Get your tie line, that's the different 3 inches from the clutch line. Right. So now to the hip line. Okay. So now I'm going to mark the horizontal measurement on the hip. I get my hip divided by 4. Alright, let me label it first. That's the tie line and the knee line. Yeah. So remember I said get your hip, I divide the hip by 4 inches. Giving me 11.5. Remember I add sewing allowance, the hip divided by 4 plus sewing allowance, then the clutch line. I'll extend the hip measurement to the clutch line and mark it into a straight line. So now go out by 2 inches on the clutch line, extend it by 2 inches, and then connect it to the hip line, like so. Right. So now I'm going to extend it to the waist. So the next thing to do is to get the thigh line. You measure your thigh. Some people call it lap, whichever one. Measure it, divide it by 2. That's thigh divided by 2. You mark it plus your sewing allowance. So I'll go do the same thing at the knee line. Measure your knee and divide it by 2 plus sewing allowance. You mark it and then connect it. So now the next thing to do is to get a waist measurement. So you measure your waist divided by 4, then add your sewing allowance plus dart allowance, because you're going to have a dart. So you mark it. Right. Having marked it, I'm going to connect it with the curve rule to the hip line. Right. So the next thing to do now is to get our dart. Get the dart is your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So mine is 4 inches plus half an inch, make it 4.5. Then extend it to 5 inches length. Right. Then I mark half an inch on both sides. And then connect it. Alright. So now I'm going to trace it out. At the hip line, you make sure you follow the line so you get that curve at the hip. Okay. So that's all for the front piece. So now we're going to cut the back. Having placed the back on the front piece, under the front piece, what you do is to extend by 2 inches at the hip line, the waistline, the clutch line by 2 inches each. Also on the knee line, I extend by 2 inches to the thigh and the knee line. Then I connect the lines. So right now I'm going to press it out. So now we've placed it on our fabric. That's the front piece and the back piece. When tracing on your fabric, you make sure you fold the fabric into two so that you have two pieces each. 2 pieces for the front and 2 pieces for the back. So right now you're going to cut the pocket. Okay, this is the band. So I already cut the band. Remember, I extend 2 inches for the band. I cut the band and iron it with gun stir. Actually, I iron the gun stir on one part, but you can do on all the parts of the band. So next is to go to iron it completely so I can gum and have a frame at the band. So now I'm going to cut the pocket. So actually you can make this pocket a square shape, or you can use your hand to create a shape or kind of hand shape like this. So that's actually the one I'm going to use. So now I'm going to trace it out. So this is the pocket. You can see I've sewed it together. Right. So now we're going to fix it. But before we do that, we have to connect the clutch together so it will be in a 2-piece. Alright, so I'm going to join it together. So now to first of all join the clutch, I have to press it, placing the front side, the right side facing each other on the front piece. So I'm going to sew it together. Right, we have sewed it together now. So the next thing is to add the pocket. So to add the pocket, you mark your line starting from your sewing allowance, because I add 2 inches for the sewing allowance. So for now I'm going to start from that 2 inches or 1.5 inches to make it fit at the hip. I hope you understand what I mean. I'm going to start from 1.5 inches and mark a curved line and trim it off to fit the pocket so that the hip will have fitting. Alright. That's where the pockets will be. So now I'm going to place the pockets on right side facing each other so that the rough edges will be inside. Trim it off. So I'm going to hold with office pin. for sewing it. All right. Okay. So I'm pinning with office pin then. So the next step is to place the other piece on it. Place another piece on it and also pin it down so that when sewing and sew together. Right. And make sure you start from your sewing allowance. Starting from the sewing allowance, that's 1.5 inches. That's inches for half inches for sewing and 1.5 for the sewing allowance, and you have 3 meter off and pin it down. Okay. That's as simple as that. Okay. So I can see the pockets inside. So, so I'm going to sew it from that pin. I pin it, sew it, and then sew it straight down. So now this is it. Alright, our short is set. We have fixed the band and the pocket and the zip. So thank you for watching. Please kindly subscribe. Thank you so much.